This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo, and I'm here with my wife, Christie.
Hello, hello.
Well, baseball's over.
Baseball's over.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Well, I got to say, looking at the season, I got to give baseball a thumbs up for this year. They're going in the right direction.
For sure.
I think the new rules added a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Games moved quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Teams were better all around.
More stealing bases.
That's
going to be increasing as well in next year.
Yeah, base hits. Guys like Horner and certain guys on, the Diamondbacks, look what they did with their kind of team. Mm-hmm. Everything on that level is going in the right direction. Still got to work on filming. Shooting the baseball on TV. I say filming because, that's what we do. But you got to look at it more as a film. I really believe that.
Speaking of, there was an interesting shot that they had right before one of the World Series games where it was a drone shot coming in over, the open roof of Arizona and then coming in, and it was going so down so fast like a roller coaster. It was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You gotta spin that around like a parachute because that's too fast down, too fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's good. Hey, they're doing something different.
They're trying.
One a little quick. Slow it down. But getting back to the game, I like the cameras with the umpires. That gave a really cool feel.
That was cool.
And I just feel, going forward, they got many more steps as far as evolving the game to today's kind of world with a little of the past, but we got to go forward. You're never really going to go backwards. But I feel like I didn't know enough players on the Rangers. You know what I mean? I didn't really know enough players on the Diamondbacks until they beat up the Cubs. Right?
You know what NFL does, right? It's like right before the game or even in between some of the first quarter, there's like an intro that they do to some of the guys. And it's sometimes cartoony, sometimes,
Yeah.
And it's like they're showing you, hey, here's the players. And they tell you a little bit about them.
Those are national games, though. So those are for a lot of people to see.
But
baseball's
World
more regional.
Series was a national game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They could do more of that. But I'm talking even during the season. You can pump up these players a little differently. MLB has a good format with their own MLB network, and I just feel like you gotta really showcase, because I don't watch the MLB network because we don't get it, which stinks, right? So how do you get to people like me that aren't getting that network,
right?
That's seeing it every day and following what they're talking about? And I feel like each team has to kind of go out and market their top players.
But they don't want to do that because they kind of like discarding their players and like going back into the AAA and pulling them up. They do. Cubs didn't keep Rizzo. They didn't keep Bryant. They're just throwing away their stars. They don't want to have stars.
Well, all right. That's a mouthful.
What, is it wrong to say?
No, it's not wrong to say. I'm just saying, like, they should have signed Rizzo. I've said that forever. Right after they won the World Series, they should have bumped a raise to him because he was playing under his value, even though he signed because of security reasons early on in his career with the Cubs. But I feel like, you keep Rizzo. It's like we got a guy that we know won the World Series is still there. You're right. They're letting a lot of these big guys go. And I don't understand. I don't think that the Dodgers wanted to give up Corey Seager because he was a big name, and get another jersey at shortstop, all right? Why wouldn't you want Corey Seager playing shortstop forever and those guys wearing that jersey forever? Okay, so if you think it's about shifting players for merchandise, I don't so much agree with that. I think it's like they're just stupid. They don't see like, hey, Corey Seager's your homegrown guy. Why wouldn't you sign him as a free agent and lock him up? and say, we want you, and here's why. You'll get a statue. You're going to be our Hall of Famer. You almost got to look at these franchise players like, here's our Hall of Fame player.
Right.
Let's stick with him. Let's stick with Rizzo. He's our Hall of Fame player.
Exactly.
No one else on that team is.
Pick one.
Pick one. And they didn't. And the teams aren't doing that. And I think if more teams concentrate on keeping the homegrown guys that come up or that you traded before they became famous or well-known, you got to start boosting those guys up and seriously thinking about keeping them around for more than just like, oh, it's too expensive. You got to look at the future, the big picture. And I hope they do that. I hope baseball goes in that direction where they put baseball on the map more because they're losing viewers. There was only 4 million views for the World Series. The Cubs World Series had 40 million. So it shows you the difference. And I think even Joe Buck, I heard talk about that. He didn't know any of the. He couldn't come back and announce a game in the World Series because he doesn't know who anyone is anymore.
Yeah.
And if you just lose touch for a little bit, you're losing who's where and what. So I feel like baseball really has to concentrate on keeping the guys, the names, the people that fit for that city, and go with them.
Now, what do you think about the umpiring?
The umpiring, some calls, man, some real bad calls, strike calls, balls and strikes in key situations like
key situations.
3-1, outside pitch, it's off the plate. He calls strike 2. That was a big game for the Diamondbacks in the 9th inning to maybe come back, and your leadoff hitter now he grounds out the third. I think that's just like an umpire. That's what I don't understand. Umpires should be situational too. Like you should be thinking 3-1. The pitcher's got to come in the strike zone. He has to hit the strike zone, or it's ball 4. Because now if it's 0-2, he paints the corner. It's a little off. I get it. The batter's behind, but that guy had a good at bat. And before you know it, now he does not at first base, comes back, grounds out. The whole inning changes. The 9th inning changes for the World Series. Umpire blew that one.
Yeah.
And umps are doing a lot of that. And I think eventually they're probably going to have the computer strikes and balls because of that.
Yeah.
Probably, or maybe
they're not doing anything they're just giving it away.
They are.
Yeah.
And I feel like if maybe you can do it like replays, give each team 2 strikes to argue in key situations. Replays on them.
Yeah.
Maybe you start with that. But anyway, we're going forward on that. Now let's get to the managers. Okay. This is what I really like. I realize now in this season more so because I guess maybe I'm paying attention. We're paying attention more this last season. Is the managers can blow a game. They can really screw up a team. And I felt like that wasn't so much back in the day. The players played, the pitchers pitched, the hitters hit, they stole bases. Now it's like these managers get desperate. I don't know why, Torey Lovullo, what's his name? Lovullo, why he bunted the third hitter in inning 3 in game 5. Like first and second, nobody out. You're trying to just bunt early in the game to score 1 run against Texas. Maybe he didn't give him the bunt signal. I don't know. But why is your 3-hitter bunting, sacrificing? It's just, to me, it's like, Billy Williams would never bunt, My dad would never bunt. You got to go for big innings in big games like that and try and put it to him right away. So I think some of these managers, like Bochy, and even Dusty, these guys have done well with these younger guys, these old school, older managers. And some of the younger ones just seem like they're caught up in the analytics so much that they make these choices that just,
yeah, it's almost like we'll try it out and see what happens, because sometimes you see what happens and good things happen. But, that's a high risk situation. If you're betting everything on we'll see what happens.
No, I don't. I think it's more of, let's get a run in. Let's get it early. But that's desperate to me. It's like, let them play. Again, let them play. You're a manager. You got your lineup out there. Okay, you got guys in the right places. You got the pitcher you want. Let them play.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you do that at home, the fans are like, come on. If the fans know, like, that's kind of like a little league play. It is. And sometimes when you pull a starter too soon, but baseball, it was a fun season.
It was. And I was rooting for the Rangers. I know you were rooting for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
But, I'm happy that the Rangers got it.
It was nice to see they deserved
the first
it.
Win.
They had good players. Corey Seager's a beast. And like I said, I don't know why the Dodgers gave up him. And great to see Garcia come out into the limelight. People in baseball knew who he was, but boy, That guy's crushing later in his career too. He's 30. Like he just came into the league at like 27. So late bloomer, and he's blooming. So yeah, it was nice. And the Cubs, let's look forward to next year. I think they got to make a couple of key moves. Bring back Rizzo. Bring back Rizzo. Why not? This is the time to do it. Why not? They don't have a first baseman.
That's true.
Well, our show. So, part 2, basically with Louis Lombardi. You got to hear this. Mm-hmm. He talks about Hollywood and the strike and everything that's going on too, and also we have Scott Nelson, who worked for the Cubs for 35 years. Started as a bat boy and worked his way all the way up in the organization. Became chief operator president of player development. So player operations during Jim Henry days, which is great. I got to know Scott on a couple of road trips, hanging out with him in the press box up there when I was doing this old Cub. But just a great guy from Chicago. One of those guys that loved the Cubs, wanted to work for the Cubs, and found a way to do it. And pretty cool story. Can't wait for you to hear that.
Enjoy.
Hey everybody, I was in Encino, California the other day at a meeting, and I get out of there and I'm hungry as can be, man. And there's traffic, LA traffic. And I'm thinking, I got to get some side streets here like my dad did in Wrigley. And I wind up at Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, and there's Gino's East Pizza. Boom, park the car, go inside, and I order a tavern pizza, cheese and sausage, my favorite, top 3 foods of all time. And there's the owner, Dan and Todd, and they're like, hey man, you're on the TV. I'm like, yeah, right, guys. They love to razz me once in a while. And sure enough, I was. My dad's documentary from MLB was playing. But I had no time for that. I had to eat my pizza. I devoured that thing in a minute. I was so hungry. You got to go to Gino's East for the greatest pizza around. Gino's East, LA. Put it in your Google's map right now. It's going to be our place to go, me and Christie, on Friday's happy hour. Go to Gino's East, right near Coldwater Canyon and the 101. Put it in your Google's map now. We'll see you there.
And let's talk about now where you are now, man. You're a single father, right?
Yeah.
You're raising a beautiful daughter. Tell us about that, man.
You know what? Again, being brought up by all women my whole life, that's all it was, because all the men were dead or in jail. So I'm brought up by 3 women, and that's where my cooking came in. So all of the cooking of my life growing up, I've been cooking since I'm 5, has led me to my career, which I didn't become an actor. I would have became a restaurant owner. I wanted to open people back then. I wanted to go to cooking school, but I didn't have the education. So I always wanted to be a cook. Always wanted to cook. Of course, I was with 3 women, brought me up, right? But again, that was a blessing, those 3 women, because look at today. I cook every night with my daughter. For my whole life, I've been doing it. But now I'm teaching my daughter how to cook, and it's become a big business for us now. But I got it all from that horrible situation of being brought up by women out of necessity, which was the best thing that ever happened, because they made me a tough mentality. My grandmother was a kingpin boss, strong mentality woman, gorgeous, looked like Sophia Loren. And she would always be like, get up, step, and I'd be like, all right. And that's why I got my aggressive, strong mentality for these women. So now, talk about God blessing me, because all those women have learned, I know women better than women. That's my life. Now I have a daughter. So.
There you go, man. And
my
dad was raised by his...
God was saying, we're gonna make you deal with all these women because you're gonna have a daughter who's a pain in the ass as well.
Come on.
The best. I couldn't have had a better child.
No, dude. You're right on, man. Every time I see your posts and everything, that you guys are always together, smiling, having fun. Yep. And the pizza company's named after Ava Luz, which is your daughter Ava, right? And it's beautiful. You guys are doing great. My dad was raised by his mom and his sister, and he had that same toughness, man, because they gave him love with the toughness.
Right.
There's something about the female mind that just keeps them on the track. I don't know, man, but
you know why? You know why, Jeff? Because it builds heart as much as strength.
Yeah, man. God, unbelievable.
Well, that's where my sympathy and my heart comes from, like feeding people and feeling bad for certain people because of that. My grandmother, my mother would always take care of kids and people.
Yeah, man. Makes sense.
Let me tell you something. My buddy was like my brother. He lived with us for years. He was older. He's my brother's best friend, and he lived with me. This has happened now, right? So he lived with me, and he was a great, great guy. He was a hitman. Okay, let's just leave it at that. So anyway, long story short, he lived with us, right, for years. He was like my big brother. Psycho, crazy, best guy ever, though. Love him to death, right? Listen, he got caught, and he ended up getting death row.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Listen to this. He was on death row for 38 years. But they came to my house and said, "We're looking for him. He's killed these people. Of course, we'll see you're harboring a fugitive. If he comes back, you're going to get arrested." I was 8, 9, 10, they're 11, 12 years old, 13 years old. They came to the house, that bounty hunters looking for him. So we didn't see him after that, right? He got pinched. He kind of confessed to it himself. He got life. He got death row. He was on death row in Norway for 38 years. The governor loved him. He did all these programs on him. He just got out.
Ooh.
My buddy got off death row. The governor, he just sent me on YouTube, and he's still like my brother. He calls me. He used to sit around with us. But these are the people that were around my dinner table 24/7. These were my family.
Wow, man.
And he ended up getting off. His dad was wealthy, tried to spend all his money helping him get out of death row. His dad died. The kid did it, and not kid. He's like 62 years old, but he was like my brother, like my big brother. And he ended up getting out. Now he's thriving in his life, being a legit guy after 38 years on death row. And I talk to him every day. He's like, he asks me, what do I want to try to help him. The first thing I get successful, I take him out here with me because trustworthy, unbelievable brother.
Unbelievable, man.
But these are the people that I ate with every day. And every one of them is doing 50 years, 30 years. Who's the biggest killer? Who's this? And that must set my mindset. But the women created my heart. And they also taught me how to cook. So I was so blessed to have a daughter because all that knowledge of the women is now I use with my daughter.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt.
Everything that happened for a reason. And it's still setting that level.
Yeah, it sure is, man. And you're following it, man. You're following the signs. You're following the movement. And getting back to when we saw each other again, your movie Doughboy Boys, and we were at the 2008 Phoenix Film Festival when I really met you. I came up to you again, and then I had a film there, Jake's Corner, and then we hung out together, just kind of like outcasts at this festival, and we just had a ball. And and let's talk about that movie Doughboys because it just got a digital release, and dude, I loved it, man. It's an independent film, so independent films are hard to make. You don't have the same amount of time, same amount of budget. It's a difficult thing to do. Right. So and plus at that time that we did our films, the economy crashed, and it was so hard for distribution at that time.
But the distributors just were robbing people.
They're robbing everybody. Yeah, I've talked about my whole career.
Going to festivals, picking up everyone's films for free, selling them in bulk to the cable stations, and no one was making a dollar.
Dude, I have fought against that my whole filmmaking career, and then when I did my dad's documentary, This Old Cub, I made sure that we distribute on our own because I stayed away from those thieves, man.
Right.
And we actually paid back our investors and made a profit and gave JDRF $500,000 in profits. So it was like I totally understand your movie 100% from the beginning of how you made it to what you were making to then having to put it out there. And that world that you're showing is really you, these two brothers, because I don't think about you and a brother so much because you had a brother also growing up, right?
Right, yeah.
Were you this close as you were with these characters in the movie? Because you're living amongst gangsters in this story, trying to have a legitimate business.
Yeah, no, my brother was more of a street guy as well,
Okay.
Drugs and prisons and stuff like that. That's who he was best friends with, was the guy I just told you.
Okay.
Everyone's a criminal in my world. Everyone. That's why I look at God and I go, divine intervention. All the tragedies happened to get me out of that world. And I broke the cycle. Broke the cycle,
you sure did, man.
All those tragedies became massive triumphs. Every one of them. Yep. Up until today, up until now, when the worst things happen today, I just sit back and people know, all right, we got you. I don't go, I don't break down, I don't go crazy. I might kind of get frustrated for like a half hour. But again, I tell my daughter, I get a movie making $1 million, it's this. I get a movie making $1, it's this. It's level. You're always level. Yeah. Never go, I'm in a movie now. I never talk down to people when I was starring on the biggest shows. And I never talk down to people. Unless you're a jerk off, I'll spit in your face and like verbally meaning. I don't mean like spit, like literally, but verbally.
Yeah.
I'll do what I feel.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm not a coward. I don't want people to. I'm not a phony.
That's obvious, Lou. Now, now let me ask you back to Doughboys. Now, those two brothers, where did you get that relationship from? Like, how did
growing up, most of the people were gambling degenerates. I gambled too, Jeff. I still do. I bet 30 games a week.
Oh my God, man!
I sit in front of my TV, and I've been controlling it, but I've been doing that since I'm 10.
Well, you played so are both those sides you? Because the brother is the good side.
of the bad side.
Yes, they were. They were both kind of me.
Yeah.
Because one was like, it was like the good and evil on your shoulder, you know?
Yeah,
one
right.
Fucking the family, and the other one was like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah, totally.
I'm both of those guys to a degree. But the film came from real stories of guys I knew that destroyed their lives gambling. Gambling's worse than drugs, Jeff. I don't know. You know, I mean, gambling is a worse addiction than drugs, actually. And I've seen it destroy. So my grandfather was worth. My grandfather probably lost $30 million gambling. Died penniless. Died broke.
Yeah, they're putting them all in the baseball stadiums now, right? It's just crazy. It's crazy. I can't believe that they're doing that. But now you told me, I remember I'm like, hey Lou, I got a podcast I started. It's baseball entertainment. And you're like, well, I don't really watch much baseball, Jeff. I'm like, oh, Lou, what? And now I watch Doughboys, and there's the Yankees, right? You got the Yankees in there. What do you mean you don't watch baseball?
I'm betting on them.
You're betting on them, but you don't watch them. So tell me, why aren't you a big baseball fan growing up in the Bronx?
You know, growing up in the Bronx, I mean, I used to go to Yankee games when I was a kid. I'm not against baseball. I played football for 10 years. I was always a football guy. I watched football constantly. I'm friends with. I was always into football, like always. Right. For some reason, I never really got into baseball. I used to like basketball, and now I just like basketball playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like I can only watch it. But football is my focus. It was always my focus in life. And what I think when I was a kid, it let me unleash a lot of aggression. I was an absolute athlete. Like people, you go back to the Bronx, never mind my street stories. People will tell you football stories. Like I could have played in college. I was so.
What position? Were you a linebacker?
I was a lineman. I was a guard. I knocked people out of every game. Like that was my thing. And we played semi-pro in East Harlem, Jefferson Park, 11-man, full contact, no equipment, all semi-pro players in this league. Bud Light sponsored it. I have videos people sent me. Man. And I would pick the biggest. I had Bud talk about no fear, and I was an athlete. I was fast for a guy who's 280. I was a rocket. So people would underestimate. I would knock guys out. I would start off every game. And it wasn't like going, I'm going to be, it was more, that was my mindset. I get on, like I do in a movie now. I get on sets. I'm like, you know, all right, I'm ready. You know, it's almost like you're ready for a fight. Like I get that energy. I don't care if, even till today, 50 years later, I still get that. And and that was a football game. I'd come to games the night before being out all night. I'd be like in the huddle, throwing up, drinking. I was fucking, but people would be like, oh God, leave him alone. Even my teammates. And I would be in the huddle, almost like in the zone of acting. And they'd be like, here he goes. And I'd pick a guy with 55. And I'd run downfield the first kickoff every game. And they would video, because they send me them 30, 40 years later. Send me the videos, all these guys. And I would pick someone, the biggest dude. And everyone would be like, here he goes. They could see me. And I would bolt down the field. It's the first kickoff every single play. And I would pick the biggest guy. And I would literally knock a guy out the first play every game. Did it for years, Jeff. I did it for years. People would tell you, God, and you laugh. My team, with all these younger guys, today, they're all the captains of each family.
Oh.
They sent me messages going, oh my God, you're a psycho. We were just kids playing, but now they're like captain of this family, both of this and that. Our coach was like the boss now, you know. But I was a kid, and my mentality was I'm going to hurt someone every game. I would pull on sweeps, dude, and just knock guys out. People will tell you, if I go to Bronx, you'll hear more football stories than street stories.
I get it. So the baseball bat, grabbing a baseball bat.
Yeah, we only use that to go collect, but we never. Yeah. I don't mind baseball. I don't mind baseball. I just my focus was always football.
Yeah, I get it, man. Of course.
On it, but I don't mind. Baseball's a little slow for me. It's like golf.
Yeah.
I don't like golf.
It's like golf. It's not like golf. It's like golf.
Hey, ready, Jeff? Strike one. Is it over? First inning, strike one. You see me like, is it over? Strike two.
Oh, man.
How many fucking strikes do they have?
Now, if you were playing baseball, though, you have the psychology. It's a reverse kind of thing. You would be like, okay, now I got to get serious when I get up to the plate, because there's nothing like facing a 90-mile fastball, not knowing if it's going to be a break or two. You know, so that kind of focus you would appreciate, and I know you do. You're having fun, but
I love sports. I played everything. I played basketball. We used to like, you know, play basketball growing up. Like we had leagues and shit. So I play football, basketball. I'm really good at still. I still shoot the eyeballs out, you know?
Right on. Now, what do you do now? What's happening now, man, for you?
Well, now I'm shooting this film, starring in this huge horror franchise, right? And what we did, Jeff, what every filmmaker should be doing, it's kind of hard, but we shot a sizzle. We took the sizzle to Regal Cinemas. Some of the executives, that people knew them. They loved the sizzle. They gave us a letter of intent to distribute the theater in a certain amount of theaters, right? We took that letter of intent from the theater chain and we took it to the investors and said, here, we have an outlet without even going through the studios. And we're shooting next week. And I star in this horror film. We've been working on it for 2 years.
Wow.
And the writer-director wrote the Columbo book. His name is Don Capria. Great writer-director. Has this amazing vision. Me and him have been friends for 20 years. You know, he was away as well. He did like 5 years with my cousin. That's how I know him in Lewisburg.
Wow, man.
And when he got out, we became good friends. And for 15 years, I tried to help him. He's a filmmaker, writer, wrote the book, the Joe Columbo book, and he wrote this script for me, starring in this crazy, great, unbelievable horror franchise. And boom, 2 years later, we have the money. I leave for New York on next Saturday, and we're shooting this movie. I'm going to star in this horror franchise. It's going to be bigger than anything I've ever done. It's an amazing project. So again,
that's great, man.
We actually took it to the streets, Jeff. You know, we took it to the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We didn't go through the system and being jerked off by Hollywood and distributors. We took it from there. We took it there, and we did it ourselves. So
yeah, and talk about what do you think of the Hollywood game right now, man? With strike still looming here with the
terrible. The strike has a purpose. It's all intentional. These companies are making billions and billions between revenue. They don't want to pay anyone. You know when it started, Jeff? It started early on in the early 90s with the disintegration of network TV to cable because they didn't want to pay people residuals. Network TV, you get big residuals. If all these studios bought cable sister stations, FX, Disney, all these people bought sister, and instead of paying residuals for network TV, they migrated their audience to cable because they didn't want to pay residuals. And you know what it did? It dismantled the network setup. That network TV, ABC, CBS, from 8 to 11, the primetime TV, is gone. And they know they did it. They did it because they migrated their audience. And when people left network TV to cable, they're like, there's 100 channels. So that's how they started losing their audience that agreed. So when cable came, you don't get residuals. You get like $30. Nothing, right? Still, you'll get nothing. So what they did then was they didn't want to pay the $30. And they didn't want to pay all that stuff. So what they do? They migrated to streamers. You got to remember, if Netflix has 150 million subscribers at $15 a month, they're making $400 million a month. All of them. And all they do is cry. But if you look at the bonuses every studio executive is getting, to $100 million a year, $200 million, $300 million, and they don't want to pay $480 million over 3 years to 200,000 people.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're going back to the greed.
And you know what? It's destroying the streamers. Disney has lost in the last 6 months. Disney lost, I think about 14 million subscribers. People are tired of it. People like you're putting the same crap, politically correct, woke stuff. No one wants to watch it. Middle America. I drove across this country. I'm in all these. Middle America wants to watch what they want to watch. They don't want to be dictated by, like what Hollywood wants to make. And it shows. The box office has crashed. The TV ratings are down. They think they have their finger on the pulse, but they don't.
Right.
Not one of them do. Not one of them do. And everything is failing. But their ego in that, I'm going to keep doing it because I'm in charge and I can show you. Okay, so you're failing. You'd rather fail than have other people create the success. And all the people that are making money, look at the executives.
Yeah, no.
All the executives are making $100 million bonus to them, but you don't want to pay someone $50 residual.
Crazy.
I'm moving on. I like Hollywood to a degree where if I'm doing projects myself, I like Hollywood. But to be in the system is hard. It's just these days, especially. It's redundant. The same actors, the same. You watch TV, it's the same fucking program. What is this? The same show? It looks like the next 5 trailers that you're watching for the next 5 shows. You know what I'm saying? So you just it's the same stuff. Get creative. Stop making reruns. Stop making
and it's hitting it's hurting the middle class actor that could make a living being a character actor. Now they can't anymore with the way the system's running. Right?
And then when people go, all these big stars, the big stars are the problem because they're the producers.
Right.
How do you think they amass their fortunes? George Clooney, Wahlberg, Rock. They own the movie. They're the producer. The reason you're not getting residuals is because they're getting $50 million a movie and you're making nothing. They're the problem.
Yeah,
the big stars,
wow, man.
The big stars is a problem. Everyone is a producer. Everyone has ownership. How do you think they amass their, how do you think they amass their $100 million fucking fortunes? They get 20 million actors, but they get another 40 million from back end. They're producers.
Yeah.
And that's why when I watch these idiots striking and they're hugging these big stars, I go, you're hugging the enemy. That's the problem. I go, let George Clooney pay your health benefits next year. Let Wahlberg. No, they ain't giving you a nickel back.
Yeah.
They're making more than the real producers on the movie.
It's true. It's got to change. But do you see a light through the dark tunnel?
Not really. I see it just getting darker and darker because the greed of the business, so much money, and no one wants to share anything, which is absolutely sad. Somebody'd rather have $500 million than watch you eat out of a garbage can in this business. That's the truth.
Wow, man.
Most of these guys would rather watch you eat out of a garbage can than give you a raise when they're making 50, 60 million a movie. That's why I start looking at the side going, it's beyond fixable. The greed is so embedded. It's always been greedy.
But it's everywhere though now, man. And I think if it doesn't change, I mean, the people, the hardworking actors, writers, the talent has to change it. And so hopefully, it can. But
it's the big talent. They don't want it.
The big talent has to come down, man, and say let's either cast off into something more independent, because we've always been in that independent realm. You started there, I started there.
That's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and you're going back to it, but.
And we already got distribution. And you know what? I think the theaters are tired of the system too, because
well, there you go. Maybe
like 2 years ago they were releasing these big movies, but not putting them on movie theaters, just putting them right to streamers. And the theaters were going, "What are you talking about?" Now they realize that the studios that, wow, we cut out $400 million in revenue by not putting them in theaters to be greedy for $100 million straight to us. So they cut out the whole revenue stream.
Oh, I know, and that's what. Yeah, and I've talked over my whole career about this when I did my independent films. I mean, just getting screwed on the distribution side with Dead and Five Heartbeats. I went out to theaters myself, lined up independent theaters just for weekends, like a rock show. Played 2 times on a Saturday, bring the merchandise, sold out, went to another city, and we were successful. That model works. It's just there's not enough filmmakers saying we have to have that kind of model. And that model exists out there. Maybe this is the time it finally comes together where there is someone with a lot of money and a name that can say, we're going to have an independent route here, and we're going to go back to these theaters and make it more of a weekend thing. Because, when they started making 26 theaters, no one's going to these theaters during the week,
No.
and selling
they were, but now that the movies they're making a crap. No one wants to go.
Right.
If I go to the movies 2-3 days a week, I have the AMC pass.
Right.
I love the theater. That's how I started as a kid. I didn't go to school. I would go to the movie theaters.
Exactly.
When I was old enough to take that train to Fordham Road in the Bronx, I would get on that train. I would go to the movies, no school. I went to the movies all the time, and I still do.
Exactly. We love the movie theaters, but again, though, to get the movies that we're talking about that you want to be in and involved in, you're right. It's kind of your hands are tied. It's like the system does have to open up for independence to thrive, because you can't go out and raise money and then not make that money back for your investors. I always hated that, Lou, and I know that becomes a problem, but it's like, you're doing the right thing. You're trying something new. You're going directly to the theaters. So that might.
And they loved it.
And that's great.
They loved it. We take a $500,000 movie. It goes in 100 theaters around the country. It makes $1 million, $2 million. We're profitable and extremely successful, and we go on to make $2. You never know. It could make $50 million, like Saw did. And
right.
These people are saying it's like it has the capability of doing a Saw-like franchise. That's what the theater signed.
That's great. So, but there's also those theaters, like I know because I went around the country renting them out. A lot of independent venues in every big city, independently ran, that are beautiful old historical society stuff. And those kind of theaters need to come together with someone. And
the theaters alone are tired of the system.
Yeah.
Because the system tried to screw them over years ago by putting the movies directed. And a lot of the big directors won't work with Warner Brothers no more. They won't work with the studios. They're like, why put my $200 million movie or my masterpiece on Netflix with like Mob Wives?
Yeah.
There's no, and that's why people go, oh, the award shows. The award shows are crap because there's no more class to like the Oscars. You put it with the Emmy. The TV guys, everybody's the same.
Yeah.
You can't differentiate from TV to film anymore. So the big guys are like, it became a terrible, it became a business about money, but it wasn't even about making money. It was about screwing people over for money that hurt them, and they don't want to fix it. So it'll never be fixed. And if I go off and make my pizza company, I'm more happy. I'm in charge of my own stuff. I feed people. I laugh. This business to me is great. I love the pizza game, me and my
man. I get it, but you still need to be acting. You will be. I know. There's the changes happening.
tries, and before you know it, I'll be doing 5 of these. I'll be
there you go, man. There you go. Oh man. So Lou, thanks so much for coming on, man. I know you got to get hustling out. This is great.
I got to meet with a pizza company right now to go. I'm trying to get.
Man, your story's amazing, and thank you for sharing it, man. I mean, a lot of people are going to absorb that. I got a lot of people in Chicago hearing this podcast,
I love Chicago. Let me tell you something. Chicago people are my absolute favorite.
Oh, wow.
I love Chicago. I love everybody in Chicago. They are my family almost more than New York.
Wow.
I love it. I love the food. When I go to Chicago, it's like I'm in the Bronx, but it's the most comfortable city, place. I just love Chicago.
Oh, that's awesome,
about it, man. If I had a place to go and visit all the time and hang, I would go to Chicago. I have so many friends there.
Well, I'm going to Wrigley with you, man. We're going to do that one day here soon. Yes. Hopefully next year we'll do it, all right?
I'll be like, all right, we're at the game, right? Eat my hot dog. I'll be like,
I doubt it,
strike
Lou.
one. I'm like, is it over? You're like, no, Lou, we got 10 million more strikes.
Not at Wrigley, buddy. We'll have the time of our life, man. Have you been there?
No, but I would love it to go.
You're coming there with me. I'm inviting you with me, man.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Awesome, buddy.
Yeah.
Great talking with you.
And I'm having a pop-up event for Ava Lou's Pizza in downtown Long Beach, November 17th. If anybody's around, they want to. And if you're an artist, a musician, a comedian, we're having an open mic night. My pizza company's going to have my first, opening, like soft opening as like a pop-up event in downtown Long Beach. It's at a place called the Partake Collection. It's on Elm Street in downtown Long Beach. I'm about
November 17th?
Yeah, when I get back from my movie, the 15th, the 17th is the pop-up pizza thing.
Well, we're there, man. I'll see you on the 17th, pal. Good luck with the movie. Great talking to you.
Great conversation. Love it,
awesome.
Jeff.
Love you, Louis Lombardi.
You got
Take
it.
care,
Thank
pal.
you. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. See you, brother.
That moment was brought to you by the Audio Suite, a sound recording, design, editorial, and mixing company for film, broadcast, advertising, music, podcasts, audiobooks, and multimedia industries. The Audio Suite provides high-quality services at cost-effective solutions to meet your post-production needs. Voiceover, narration, ADR, sound design, sound effects, editorial and sweetening, recording, mixing, mastering, audio restoration, and more. The Audio Suite will get you to the finish line on time and on budget. Steve Harrison, owner, designer, mixer, has decades of experience and has worked with various clients from HBO Films to Penguin Random House, to us, Santo Films. When we needed post-production mastering for our independent film Dead in 5 Heartbeats, the Audio Suite was our go-to place. Steve is knowledgeable, reliable, and always delivers the highest quality. Go to www.audiosuitestudios.com. We highly recommend.
Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Hello?
Scott Nelson.
Yeah, hey. Jeff.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? You're my crackerjack.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
Hey, man, what's going on? How you been?
I've been doing good. I'm doing fine.
Good. You in Chicago?
In Skokie, right? You know where Skokie is. You lived right near here.
Yeah.
Years ago.
I do, man. Yes. As a kid, we always drove past Skokie on the Edens to go to Wrigley Field. And speaking of Wrigley Field, man, I want to talk about your career with the Cubs. How long were you with the Cubs?
Well, I was in the front office for 30 years.
Wow.
And but prior to that, I worked first as a bat boy and then in the clubhouse with Yost for like 7 years. So actually 37 years, 30 years on the payroll, but 37 years doing things for the Cubs.
That's amazing, man. So when did you become a bat boy? How old were you?
18. I was older. I was an 18-year-old bat boy, but I got to know Yosh, and I did it for a couple of seasons, and I basically was the bat boy that came in the spring and the fall when the regular bat boys were in school. So I would come because, all day games, they were in school during the day. They couldn't bat boy, and so I did it. And I got to be very, very, good friends and close to Yosh. So I was kind of, I kind of had he said, anytime, just come down and help me. Cause I love to come down and, work in the clubhouse. So it was kind of an open door policy. Whenever I could make it, I made it.
That's great, man. I mean, Yosh is a legend, obviously, for Cub fans. I mean, I think most Cub fans who watched the Cubs back in the day when my dad played, and then through the 70s and 80s, Yosh was there for, I mean, he was there since I started going there with my dad. So I think he was in the starting the clubhouse in the 50s or 40s.
Well, I think probably earlier, even maybe in the late 30s. He was there for 60 years.
Oh my God,
working for the Cubs over 60
years. I remember Yosh going in, and he had that chew in his mouth, the sailor cap on, the Gilligan's hat on, and you're right. And he had that can that he would spit in with the tobacco, and he'd kind of watch us, give us a kind of a smile, like I'm watching you, follow my rules. What was it like to work for him?
Well, the very first day I worked for him, he gave me this. He told me, mind your business and keep your mouth shut, and that was it. That was his rule: mind your business and keep your mouth shut. And also, don't carry any messages from anybody to the players. In other words, if a fan or somebody out in the stands here, would you give this or tell so and so? Don't carry messages. And as I said, mind your business, keep your mouth shut. But he was great to work for.
How did you get to know him when he was a man of few words, right? Explain
unless you got to know him. He was a man of many words. Once you knew him, once you were friends with him. We used to go out to dinner all the time and all the stories. And I just wish, looking back and just life in general, but, with Yosh specifically, I wish I would have taken notes or written a diary or something so I could remember so many of the things, because it's just such a wealth of knowledge and great stories and beautiful baseball stories and fun. When you had Joey Malfitano on your show, I loved listening to it, because just to hear him talk and the way he talked baseball, that's just the way, it was back then, the way Yoshi used to talk, the way baseball people used to talk. And you don't hear that anymore.
Let's talk about that, man.
Today.
Yeah, because you started. Now you got out of high school and just said, I'm going to try and get a job at the Cubs. Was that your goal?
Well, I was. Yeah, it's a 1 in a million shot, and it would never happen today. It was really a foolish plan, but I just wanted to work for the Cubs, and I was just so intent on I'm going to work for the Cubs, and. Luckily, I got to know Yosh, and he allowed me into the clubhouse, and that kind of gave me a foot in the door, obviously. So when I went to college, I started at College of DuPage, junior college, and I had grown up in Naperville. And once I went out to spring training, I said, heck, I want to go to Arizona State, which is what I did. So I transferred to ASU, and in doing so, one of the main reasons was so I could be near the Cubs in spring training. And I'd take I'd have my spring courses such that I would take morning classes so I could go out to the ballpark, and then once again work in the clubhouse and just be at the ballpark. And, then I'd come home for the summer and, do the same thing. So anyway, I graduated, and Yost knew that I wanted to work for the Cubs, and he was, trying to push me. And at the time, Wrigley owned the team, and there were, here's the funny thing about the front office today compared to back then. There were so few people working in the front office. In the minor leagues and scouting department, there were like maybe 4 people in the whole department. Now they've got 45 people that work in that department in today's world. So there were jobs open. But it just so happened, I continued to try. And once I got out of school for a couple of years, I went out to Arizona in the spring, specifically to be near the Cubs, once again, hoping to get a job, just to be around. And what I did was I substitute taught in the grade school to make money. So I got myself a little studio apartment in Mesa. I'd substitute teach in the morning and then go out to the ballpark again. Well, as a couple of years passed, after I got out of school, the Cubs were sold to Tribune, and then Dallas Green became the GM. And Yosh was, pushing me to Dallas, and Dallas knew me because I was around. I was in the clubhouse. I was always around. He's like, Dallas, hey, how about a job for Scott? Dallas said, yeah, okay, all right. So it just so happened that in the winter of '82, there was a woman that had worked in the scouting department named Yvonne Zacharias, I believe, and I never knew her, but in the way I understand it is in December of '82 or so, she really got sick and she had a brain tumor and passed away very quickly.
Mm.
And so there was an opening, and they were looking for somebody that could fill in or that could work there. And I came out to spring training, and I drove up to the ballpark one day after sub teaching, and Dallas was walking out, and he goes, "Hey, Scott." I go, "Yeah, Dallas." He said, "Do you know how to type?" And I go, "Well, yeah." And I was lying. I didn't know how to type. I took typing in high school, but we're all just clowning around back then.
Right.
And I said, "Sure, I know how to type." He said, "Well, I might have a job for you." He said, "I want you to come back," and this was on a Friday, "come back on Monday. I want you to meet Gordy Goldsberry, our scouting and farm director, and there might be something that I have for you in the office." Shit, I was really excited. So at that time, I was living with two girls over by ASU. This was, one of my springs once again, subbing, and I wasn't in a studio apartment this time. I was living with these two girls, and one of the girls had a typewriter. And I rushed back and I said, "Can I borrow your typewriter?" Because, back in those days, if you got a clerical job like that, they would give you a typing test. How many words per minute can you type?
Right.
So I said, "Holy mackerel, I might go in on Monday and they're going to give me a typing test." And, I just remember where to put my fingers from high school, but that was about it. So I got a newspaper and I just typed all weekend. Just practice typing.
Oh, my God.
So afraid I was going to get that typing test.
Like learning an instrument. You just, in a weekend.
Yeah, try it. So I went in on Monday and I talked to Gordy, and then I talked to Vidi Hensel, who Vidi Hensel, and I talked to, I think, Phil Harford too, and they hired me. They said, your first day is April 11th. They gave me $150, but they never gave me the typing test. And I was so happy about that because I really wasn't any good. And I got into Chicago, into Wrigley Field, into my desk, and then I had a big electric typewriter, Selectric, and thank God it had the correction key because I sure needed that. But that's how I got my job.
That's amazing, man. Sometimes you just got to say you can do stuff when you can't do it just to get in the door, huh? And it works, man. And then now you ascend all the way because obviously you became the head of player development for the Cubs. I
was director of baseball operations.
Wow, what an ascension! Yeah. That's amazing. How far you came, right? And then let's talk about like today's game, because I know that, you were in the Jim Henry days, and I've talked about you on the show where, you would really fill in for Jim Henry when he didn't go on the road trips. And that year that I was doing this old Cub, you were on a lot of road trips and I traveled with them and it was great. We'd hang out in the box and stuff, but you were that close to the top. You and Jim were very tight. Tell us about that era of baseball. And to how it changed, and you were part of that big change, and I ultimately lost your job because of the change, for no other reason of that they're just going a different way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, actually, when Theo came in, quite a few people were let go, which was unfortunate. I was given an option. They wanted me to move to Arizona and work. It was a different role. It was a lesser role, but work out of the new ballpark out there and the Arizona facility and still do something, because I think that they recognize my years of service and my love of the Cubs.
Right.
I was like, I was just a Cub from day one, from being a little kid. So, So I was offered that, but the problem is I was, divorced, and my two kids, my son and daughter, were here they were actually in Morton Grove. And there was no way that I could, and they're just entering high school. My daughter was in 8th grade, and my son was just entering high school. And I didn't want to move across the country, and be away from my kids. So I actually made the decision not to stay with the Cubs, and it was a heartbreaking decision. But I'm not going to leave my kids during those great, important years of their lives.
Right.
So that's what happened there. So I do like to make it clear that I wasn't let go, because nobody wants to say that they were let go. It was my decision, but it was a tough decision.
Yeah, you were always, and you were close to my dad. You got to know him very well over the years. You guys hung out a lot. Today's baseball, you just watched the World Series. It had the lowest rating, obviously, maybe because of the teams. But is it losing something now because of the analytics? What's your thought on baseball today versus when, you were doing it, even up till the time that, the shift really happened?
Yeah, well, I think that to a certain extent, baseball, look, it's an exciting game and it's a fun game to watch regardless. But I think that the analytics portion of it does take some of the human element out of it. And I think once you take the human element out of it, you lose certain things. And certain things that has been done, even something simple with, is like the replay, which I think that, now with the cameras being so good and you can see mistakes better than ever, it's difficult. You don't want to have bad calls in the field that go on. So, I can understand the replay, but, the replay, it takes one of the fun aspects out of the game is, the arguments. And you'd love to see, a manager argue with the umpire. And as goofy as it sounds, I think people enjoy that. That's part of the game too. And in terms of just the day-to-day, functioning of the game, so many of the decisions I think are made based upon numbers and analytics. Specifically, I think I've heard that, with some organizations, somebody from the front office will come down and bring the manager the lineup, and here's your lineup today, which is formulated upstairs. And I think that's wrong, because you take so much out of the game, just that human element. And so
was that
to whatever extent, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was that ever at play when you were there? Did you ever see that come down, the lineup from above?
No, never. No, yeah. It's always, that's the manager's job. He makes the lineup.
Yep. Yeah. And it's, and even talk about like with today, you can't go backwards, obviously, right? You just can't. Mm-hmm. It's tough. The money's still flowing. It's about that. It's a big business. But I think now they got to make that game a little better on TV. And I started seeing they started doing umpire cams in the World Series and the playoffs, which is really cool. But it just seems to me like the star player, like let's say Corey Seager, he's a homegrown guy for the Dodgers, right? How do you let a guy like that go away when you actually brought him up and you don't pay him when his time comes to be paid? He goes somewhere else and look what he does. It almost loses like that value of that guy that you're going to wear his jersey for a long time. Do you think they're messing up that way? Some of these teams that even the Cubs, I thought they should have kept Rizzo right after the World Series. They should have signed him to a higher contract. He was playing under value. I know he did that for security to lock in a contract early on, but he proved it, and he became kind of like we wanted to go see Rizzo. We knew we had Rizzo at first base, and we're still kind of missing that first baseman today. What do you think of that, where you lose like that name guy that when we grew up, we knew the guys on the team, every city had their guys, right? We're kind of losing that. You think that's affecting people watching the game and following the game?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think that people do love to have teams that they know the players and the players stay together. The Cub team, the '69 Cubs, and that whole era of Cub teams, the teams stayed together for so many years, and we grow up just knowing the lineup just about.
Yeah.
What it would be every day. Who's going to bat first, second, third, and fourth, and. But, with the advent, and I say advent, years ago, but once free agency really came into play, there's been more, that that equates to more movement in the game. So, I don't know that clubs are obligated to have to pay or to keep their players. They have to pay, yes, but to keep players once they become free agents, it's kind of a wild card. Sometimes the players themselves don't want to stay maybe in a particular city, although they were brought up or came through that system. They get the option to play somewhere else themselves that they may rather play. But I do know what you're talking about, just in terms of the team sticking together and staying together, and people wearing those jerseys. And heck, you go to Wrigley Field now, and you see so many different jerseys of players that have come and gone and current players. It's always interesting to see what jerseys. And I tell you, many number 10s at Wrigley Field all the time, as you well know.
And 14 and 26, those will always stay, right? And I feel like I look at the team like Texas. I mean, they had a great year, and Arizona had a great year, came back. I mean, they took us out of the playoffs, winning 6 out of 7 in September on us. But I look at it and I didn't really know many of the players from Texas, right? Maybe Seager, and then you get you find out about Garcia, which is great. But I just feel like, even when we were younger, and even going in the 70s and 80s, you knew, like, when the World Series came around, who the other team was too. You kind of knew it, and you got to know them in the World Series. It just seems a little different, and that may be because a lot of things are happening now, more channels, more things going on. But maybe that it just lost that home of that feel, like, oh man, Johnny Bench, the Reds are playing against, the Red Sox and Carlton Fisk. You just knew the names. They lived with you. And I think maybe the lower ratings are maybe because we just don't know anyone on the Diamondbacks, or we don't know anyone on the Rangers. And maybe that needs to be looked at, like, how can you get where we are knowing these players and are staying on, because there's some great talent out there, and the game is still great, and I'm glad they're moving it faster now, because that did affect people watching it. But I don't know, I just feel like there's something missing that maybe that they can just feature their star players, because I always felt like, God, if Rizzo was still on our team, boy, what that'd be a big piece to have over there. Not only that his talent, but his experience and being part of the franchise for.
Yeah. Well, there's no telling. Maybe he may come back someday at the end of his career.
I know. We see that. We see that happen. I get that. Let's talk about, like, the team in 2003 when you were the head of development operations. That team specifically. Now, they gelled, right? You made some moves at the end with the Pirates, right? Made a good trade for a couple of guys, Ramirez and who played first base for us that year?
We had Eric Karros was at first.
Right.
For the most part.
And then you picked up Lofton. But I just remember, like, what makes a good team tick? What did you feel that year that made that team tick? And like the Diamondbacks ticked and the Rangers. What makes it all come together?
Well, we didn't tick enough that year, unfortunately. But
I know, but
we ticked pretty good. That's a heartbreaking season. Yeah.
Of course. But there was that season, and you don't get that often. 84, 89 had one, then you go 2003, 69. You know what I'm talking about. What do you think it is that putting players together, being the head of player development, what is it that you're looking for that makes a solid team click?
Well, first of all, talent, all things being said. But I don't know that. I think a lot of it has to do with the manager, and our manager, Dusty Baker, in my opinion, is the greatest manager and the best guy I've ever met in terms of a human being, but also a manager. I think that he brings it. And you see everywhere Dusty's gone, he hasn't always won the World Series. Thankfully he did last year, but he's always had a winning ball club. And so I think a lot of it has to do with Dusty. From the get-go, and he'll end up in the Hall of Fame very soon. Now that he's retired in 5 years, but that and just the talent, and maybe sometimes it's just kind of magic. Things come together. Once you start winning as a team, things, all the problems go by the wayside, and people get closer, and winning is so fun and contagious that, I think that, it's the talent, the winning, and who's running the ball club. And in this case, it was Dusty.
Yeah, I feel that managers, let's talk about that. And you look at a Bochy coming back and winning. There's something about those kind of guys, the Dusties, the Bochys, that get it. Let them play, And I feel some of the new managers are trying to do some desperate moves, pull guys early. What do you feel about all that? I think really the manager is like key today. Just don't screw up a good team.
Well, it could go back to what we were talking about a little bit ago in terms of some of these lineups coming down from the front office and that type of thing. With the newer managers, were the old school managers, that's what they are, old school, and they still do things the old school way, and they've managed that way. Sometimes I wish, it would be fun if you could take a manager, from the 1930s and put him in a dugout today and just manage that way. And,
right.
And see how a club would do. They play the game the way the game was played back then. Of course, right. You wouldn't have starting pitchers completing games, and as they did then. But
right.
Just the basic fundamentals of the game, just the in-game decisions. See how a guy would do that today, and bring that to life. Sometimes you can kind of go back to the future or what have you. And learn from the past. And I don't think that maybe guys do that as much, but here's my point, to your point with Bochy, Dusty, those type of managers, it's the human element that I was talking about. They're making the decisions. I don't think they're taking their cues from the front office in terms of here's who you're gonna play at first, here's who's going to pitch, the second guy up, if we need a relief pitcher, et cetera, et cetera. They're making the call on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And yeah, it's today. I feel like you got to, we went through the analytics. We know what it does. We know how it can help, but we don't know how it can hurt too. And bringing that pass back, that old school way back with a combination, it seems like the way of the future here. And we're getting back to those teams like the Diamondbacks, and the Cubs were kind of molded over the same kind of course of the last couple of seasons, where these guys you're getting better hitters like Horner, get on base, good defense, steal some bases. It's good to see that come back, So I always said through when they had the shift, just get a team that can play against the shift. I mean, wow, that'd be exciting just to see a team of just hitters and bunters and, moving guys over, stealing bases at the right time. But we'll see, man, going forward. But
I'm glad the shift was taken away, though, because I think that was overdone.
I'm so glad. Yeah, absolutely.
I hated seeing left-hand hitters. You bring up a guy like Rizzo, a clean base hit to right, and you're thrown out. That's just wrong.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So and people always bring, they had the Ted Williams shift, but that was a rarity. I mean, shifts became the norm, for quite a while.
Yeah.
The past 10 years or so.
Yeah, I'm so glad with all the new rules. I think they're going the right way with that now, and I love to see different ways of televising it too, and getting the notoriety of these great players today out there more. So I hope they start doing more of that. But getting back to
I've heard you say that on your show, and you've got. I'm sure it would be interesting if you could talk to some of the people, because you've got some really cool and interesting ideas, different ideas from a different perspective on how you televise it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, so you look at things and you wonder why it's died off. And even, you remember watching the WGN games as kids. There's something about the way it looked, even though it was just a basic steady shot, it's just, at times it would vibrate. It just had an older look. And now you get into more of the pristine kind of way the cameras are today. You got to do something a little different, so it doesn't look like a soap opera that you're watching at times. That's just my feel, and I think they're starting to go there a little bit, which would be great. But getting back to your career, man, Scott, your career shows, and it's a dream too. You had a dream of working for the Cubs. You weren't a player, and you found a way to get there. It's pretty amazing. You got to be pretty amazed looking back at your life and going, wow, what you did do. What's that feel like, man?
Well, I mean, it feels good. I'm so thankful to have the Cubs such a big part of my life, and I still feel that they are, even though I'm not working there. But as I said earlier, just the thought that I decided I'm going to work for the Cubs, and I really had no backup plan, and that was foolish, in a way. But it all worked out. At the time, I would have, if I wanted to work for the Cubs so much because that was just in my heart. And honestly, and I want to tell you this. Your dad and so many guys who you've heard it a million times, people saying he was my favorite player, but he was my favorite player. Just everything about him, the way he went about playing the game, his attitude, and this is before I knew him personally. And watching him growing up, that had such a big impact on me and the way I wanted to go about things in my life that, and I told him, I said, I wouldn't be. And he made me fall in love with the Cubs to begin with. And I said, I told him, I said, I wouldn't be here if not for you, because you're the one that made me love baseball and love the Cubs. And I wanted to work for the Cubs. And your dad was such a big part of that, not even knowing that. I remember a time in about 1966 or 67, he was, maybe it was 67. He came to Naperville, to do an autograph signing at the car dealership, the Pontiac dealership there. And I went to the dealership that day. I think it was a Saturday, and he was signing these, postcards with his picture and passing them out to the kids. And then they were going to take a big group photo, and of all the kids, and they were going to, and which they did, and I horned my way in to get right next to your dad. I pushed everybody aside, like, I'm getting right next to your dad for this picture. And they took the picture and they said, now, kids, you can come back in about a week or so and we'll have the photo for you. And, they never developed and gave out that photo. And I was always so disappointed. I went back to week after week. You guys have the picture? And, no, we don't have the picture. And I never did get that picture, but I did get to stand next to your dad in the picture, regardless.
Oh, my God, that's a great story. Oh, God, how disheartening. Oh, it just broke your heart. Where's the picture? Develop the damn thing. Oh,
yeah. But I still have that postcard beside, and it's down, and I have it right. I've got some things right in my basement, and it's right there, prominently. The same postcard that I originally got from your dad. Now the autograph is faded. It's you can barely read it, but the postcard's still clear. And that was cool.
That's very cool, man. God, and just going your story too, man. Just like it just shows people like, hey, man, you might not be the lead singer or the great guitarist or whatever or an actor. Anything you want to do with passion. Yeah, you play quarterback, but if you love something so much, you can be around it, right? You can go and find a job within that has inspired you to move in that certain direction. And I love that about your story, man. That you were so into the Cubs for maybe it was WGN, my dad, like you said, and just the feeling of what the Cubs gave you growing up, and it did. It gave us a lot, man. I had a little different perspective, but, feelings mutual, of just what it meant being down there at Wrigley Field. You were really close to it. You were in the clubhouse with a legend that didn't speak to many people. And you're hanging out with Yosh in downtime when no one's in the clubhouse, right? That's just amazing. You got a great story there, man, to tell from such a different place of not being an athlete or a certain kind of way that you do become a front office guy. You did it, man. And, I commend you for that, man. It's amazing. Great story.
Well, thanks. Yeah. It sure has been fun.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for being my crackerjack, Scott, man.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I love listening to your program. I listen, and I can't, and I get the notification that there's a new one up, and I listen to it right away. It's always great. And there's so many interesting things. You have so many interesting guests that, even the ones that I don't know who they are, but you always learn so many things from them, and that's the great thing. There's nobody that, I'd say, like, who is this? And with you, it seemed like I wouldn't have interest in listening to it, but you listen to it and you learn so many great, you're great at picking your guests, and the show, the show is amazing.
Appreciate that, Scott. And I got to tell you, hanging out with you in 2003 when I traveled the Cubs and doing This Old Cub, but me and you hanging out in Pittsburgh or wherever, we went, it was great, man. And I just loved it. And you're just so gracious and you treated me with such respect. And I really appreciate that, man. So.
Oh, without a doubt. And I hope we have time to hang out many, many times in the future.
Yeah, right.
As well.
Absolutely, brother. So I hope to see you soon. If not in Arizona, I plan to come to Chicago next summer. Haven't been there in a while. So, but
yeah, you got to get here. You don't want to be here now, though. It's starting to get chilly.
No, I don't miss the winters, man. Not at all. So, but I'll see you. I'll see you in 2024 for sure. So I look forward to that.
Oh, great. Yeah, me too.
All right, Scott. Have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season, man. And I'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it, bud.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You see you, brother. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening to our show. Special thanks to our cool crackerjacks, Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry Rankin-Gurovitz, Terry O'Brien, Gary Tallman, and Anne-Marie Pascule.
This show is made possible because of all of them, of all of our subscribers, and you for listening. If you want to support the show and be a cool crackerjack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page. And now you can follow us on Patreon for free, get notified when new episodes drop, and communicate with our listeners. Click the link below this episode or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Remember to click the follow button for next week's episode. And there's only 2 more left for this season. We're going to be taking off over the winter, coming back in February just before spring training. We have 2 more. So they're going to be really, really cool shows. So stay tuned.
And leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And don't hesitate to write, give us suggestions, tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
For my closing quote, finding good players is easy. Getting them to play as a team is another story. Casey Stengel.
Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.